All right. Well, good afternoon. My name is Attorney Matt Parker. I'm an attorney with the firm of Marshall, Parker, and Weber. I want to welcome all of you to the webinar about a rather complicated but very effective method of qualifying somebody for the Medicaid program, and that is the Medicaid annuity. Today, I'm going to be reviewing how the Medicaid program works as it relates to getting long-term care benefits, either in a nursing home or in the home. And then I'm going to review two basic strategies of helping to qualify someone for Medicaid using a Medicaid annuity. The first will be in a spousal situation where we have a married couple. One of them's heading to the nursing home and the other one wants to stay at home and protect as much money as possible. We call that the spousal Medicaid annuity. Then I'll review the use of a Medicaid annuity in a gifting context. So someone may have made a gift of money or property, making them not eligible for Medicaid benefits. And I will review how a Medicaid annuity can help those individuals pay the nursing home during the time that they're not eligible for benefits. So first of all, we have to review a little bit about how the cost of long-term care is paid for in this country. You see, Medicaid annuities arose out of the need to qualify somebody for Medicaid benefits to pay for long-term care costs. Medicaid is an enormous program. It pays for a lot more than nursing home expenses. It is funded by both the state and federal government. The states in this country follow the federal rules with regard to how someone qualifies for the Medicaid program. The program is run by the individual states, and every state has a slightly different variation on how they run the program. Every state has a different name for the Medicaid program. Here in Pennsylvania, we call it medical assistance, sometimes known as MA for short. And so if I slip between Medicaid and medical assistance, it's the same program. Now, although Medicaid pays for the healthcare benefits for many, many lower income residents, in fact, in many cases, it's their form of health insurance, it also pays for long-term care costs. So when I talk about long-term care costs, I'm talking about the nursing home care, that is a skilled nursing facility, not assisted living, but nursing facilities. And also there's a home health care benefit for people who are staying in their home and they need caregivers to come into their home to provide care. Now, the cost of long-term care can quickly exhaust the savings of the average individual. Right now, the average cost of staying in a nursing home is about $11,000 per month. That's $132,000 per year. There's very few people, particularly here in central Pennsylvania, that can self-insure over several years with that sort of expense. Very quickly, they'll exhaust their savings. So if you're at home, you may be able to self-insure. It tends to cost less to stay at home. Some caregivers are paid under the table. Other times you're using family members. If you don't need 24-hour care from a home health care agency, it might be less expensive than staying in a nursing home. However, once you get into that 24-hour care from an agency, it's roughly equivalent to the same expense you're going to face in a nursing home. So I will mention the home health care program through the Medicaid system. It's right now called the Community Health Choices Waiver Program. Now, through this program, caregivers will be paid for a certain number of hours where they will come into the home and provide care for an individual. Normally, it's not 24-hour care. Every once in a while, you'll see an exception, sometimes for a younger individual, where there'll be a waiver program that pays for around-the-clock care. But for most of my senior clients, there's a block of hours that will be given by the government where they will actually pay for the cost of care for someone to enter their home and provide the type of care that's typically provided in a nursing home. Now, you have to be aware that with the waiver program, there's an income limit. Right now, that's $2,382 a month. If you have $500 or less over that mark, there's some planning you can do to become eligible for the waiver program. So the income cap is not disqualifying if you have $500 or less above that figure. That income cap changes every year. But right now, some people who would be over that cap, let's say $1,000, are not going to be eligible for the waiver program. I'm going to talk in a minute about resource eligibility for Medicaid, and the resource eligibility rules are the same for the waiver program as they are for somebody entering the nursing home. Oh, and this enrollment broker I have on this slide, that's your contact information if you're interested in qualifying for the waiver program. They are an independent broker that screens cases that individuals that need to qualify for the waiver services. It's called Maximus. And if you go to that website, you'll find instructions for applying for the waiver program. Well, before we go further, I have to explain that there's no real government benefit out there that automatically is going to pay for long-term care costs, whether it's at home or in a nursing home. And this surprises some people. They think that Medicare, for example, is going to pay for long-term care. Medicare is for hospital visits, medical procedures, doctor's visits, a whole host of things actually are covered by the Medicare program, but long-term stays in the nursing home are not one of them. Medicare will actually pay for a very short-term stay in a nursing home. It's typically for rehabilitation where you're intending to go home in a relatively short period of time. There are some rules associated with it qualifying for that benefit. And quite frankly, it doesn't last forever. It's only 100 days at most, and almost everybody does not get the full 100 days. So Medicare is not the solution for long-term care. These are your three options on this slide. You're either going to self-insure and pay privately. So some of my wealthier clients are in that boat. Acquire private insurance called long-term care insurance. Like any other insurance benefit, you have to qualify for it. If you're not that healthy, they won't want to insure you, and it can get very expensive as you get older. The other thing that's happened with long-term care insurance, particularly over this decade, is that it's become less and less popular. A lot of companies have pulled out of offering that type of insurance because it wasn't very profitable for them. So the number of parties that are actually providing insurance benefits has been reduced over time. They have come up with some different types of policies like blended life insurance policies with a long-term care rider to make them more attractive. So it's a type of insurance where if you have it and you've got a good plan, it really does work well for you. But it's not right for everybody because it can be very expensive. So some of my older clients are not good candidates for it. So most of my clients of modest wealth fall into the last category here. They're trying to put themselves in a position to qualify for the Medicaid program. Now, I need to discuss how the Medicaid program works, particularly as it relates to your resource limitations. Not everybody's going to be eligible for the program. You have to file an application to determine if you are eligible. One of the first things that has to be done is you have to be medically certified as needing the type of care that they provide in a nursing home. So you need help with what they call the activities of daily living. Once you are medically certified, then you have to financially qualify for the program. As I mentioned, Medicaid has resource limitations. They are categorized in two areas. One are the available resources, those that you actually have to spend down before you become eligible for Medicaid, and those other unavailable resources that you can keep. The unavailable resources are the home, a car, your personal items that are in your home, your burial accounts, prepaid burial arrangements. There are also some exemptions that come up once in a while, usually a business property. We don't see it that often, but sometimes they will exempt a rental property or the business asset. Oh, and the IRA of the healthy spouse. If you're a married couple, the IRA of the spouse who's healthy and not going to the nursing home, that IRA is in fact exempt. But all of the other spending assets, the assets you can cash out and spend on your care, like cash and bonds and stocks and deferred annuities. And it doesn't really matter whose name these assets are in if you're married. They're all pooled together. And then they determine if you're eligible. If you have less than the resource allowance, as they call it, you'll be eligible for the program. If you have more than the resource allowance, they tell you you have to spend out. Now, if you're single, the amount of resources you're allowed to keep is very low. It's between $2,400 and $8,000. So you really have to be impoverished to become eligible for Medicaid as a single person. Now, if you're married, what they tell you is that you can keep a resource allowance for the spouse staying at home. What typically happens is they add up all of these available resources, all of these cash-like assets that you could spend, and they cut them in half. and half belongs to the spouse staying at home, half belongs to the spouse headed to the nursing home. The spouse in the nursing home has to spend down their share to that $2,400 to $8,000. Now, there is a maximum resource allowance. So if you had $1 million, you couldn't keep $500,000 and have somebody qualify for medical assistance. Right now, that number is $130,000 in 2021, approximately. And it changes every year. So just keep in mind, there's going to be a maximum resource allowance that you can't go beyond if you're a married couple. Now, for those who are just slightly over your resource allowance, maybe you don't have a lot of money and you can find things to spend your money on, you might become eligible for Medicaid rather quickly. So nursing home costs is at the top of the list. If someone ends up in a nursing home and they have to spend down $20,000, well, look, it's costing $11,000 a month for nursing home care. It won't take that long before you're eligible for assistance. There are other things you can spend your money on and keep. Burial accounts are very common ways to shelter some money. Prepaid, irrevocable burial arrangements. A car, if you had one person staying at home and there was an old car and you wanted to trade that one in and get a more expensive car, that's sometimes done to spend down the resources. Personal needs as well. Sometimes there's some credit card debt, a home equity line of credit you can pay off and shelter some resources in that way. Now, for couples who actually have well over the resource allowance, these sort of simple spending options aren't going to allow them to spend down the money to become eligible quickly for the Medicaid program. So let me just throw some numbers out there and say we're starting with $400,000 in available resources. So this couple has saved quite a bit of money. And if they were to try and become eligible for Medicaid, let's say the husband's headed to the nursing home, the wife could keep at most $130,000. That's the maximum resource allowance right now. So they might be able to set up some burial accounts, spend a little money here and there, but they're not going to be able to spend $270,000 on just miscellaneous personal expenses. So they could just pay the nursing home bill, but that means $270,000 is headed to nursing home costs if the person entering the nursing home lives long enough. But the Medicaid qualifying annuity comes into play in these cases because what it can do is help reduce those resources and provide for the spouse who's staying in the community. So my example would be the wife. The Medicaid qualifying annuity is an insurance product. Annuities are sold by insurance companies. Different kinds of annuities out there. Some of them are deferred annuities where you just set up some money and it grows over time, a lot like a certificate of deposit, and then it matures and you can roll it into another annuity. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about an immediate annuity. You give an insurance company a sum of money, and then they immediately start paying that back to you. And you can pick a term, number of years that this is going to go on. And every month you're going to get a fixed payment from this insurance company until all the money is returned to you, plus a little bit of interest, okay? These annuities aren't going to last long, so there's not going to be a high interest rate here. But these are the types of annuities we're using in these spousal cases. We're taking all those excess resources, in my case, it was $270,000, and we're putting it into this insurance product. And immediately the spouse at home, the community spouse, is getting a check from the insurance company as those annuity funds are being returned to her. So let's put this in practice. Here's the numbers I've been talking about, the $400,000 less the maximum resource allowance, and roughly you have $270,000 left. So you invest that in an immediate annuity. Now, the term of this annuity is typically 2 years. You can go larger than that. Technically, you can go less than that. The government likes to see about 2 years in these contracts. The term cannot exceed the life expectancy of the community spouse. You can't have balloon payments. This is an irrevocable product. Once you set it up, you are stuck with this product for 2 years. You can't cash it out 6 months after you create it. Now, if you use a 2-year term, I roughly calculated that the spouse at home would start getting $11,250 back, roughly, plus a little bit of interest every month for the next 2 years. So she's getting a rather large sum of money every month paid to her, along with her Social Security and other sources of income. That's a nice chunk of money to live on. Plus, she has the $130,000 in the bank. So even though she doesn't have complete access to the $270,000, she is getting that back rather quickly every single month until most of that money has been returned to her. Now, the reason these Medicaid annuities work so well is that all the payments made to the healthy spouse, the community spouse who's staying at home, those are not available to pay for the person's care who's going to the nursing home. Remember I said they add up all the resources, they cut them in half, or they give you the maximum resource allowance. Once you convert those excess resources into this annuity, you've made that money unavailable to pay for the person's care that goes to the nursing home. All of this money now belongs to the community spouse in these fixed monthly payments over the term of the annuity. It works because the Medicaid program defines those payments as income of the community spouse, and none of the income of the community spouse is available to pay for the spouse's care who's in the institution, whether it's Social Security, pension, these annuity payments, or otherwise. What spousal annuities do is they convert excess resources that otherwise would have to be spent on someone's care into an unavailable stream of income payments for the community spouse. Now, last comment about spousal annuities is that they're only going to benefit the community spouse if he or she is alive. If they suddenly pass away during the term of the annuity, the Department of Human Services, who provides the Medicaid benefit, will have a claim on that annuity. That claim is up to the amount of Medicaid that was paid to the institutional spouse who was in the nursing home. Okay? So if the institutional spouse was only in the nursing home for 2 months before they died, it'd be a relatively small claim. If they're in for a longer period of time, well, then the claim is going to get much larger, and they have a right to whatever is left in that annuity when the community spouse dies. If the community spouse lives long enough, let's say they live 23 and 11 months, and there's only 1 month of payment left under that annuity, well, that's all they get. So the longer the community spouse lives, the less likely it is there'll be any claim by the community spouse or by the Department of Human Services on the community spouse's annuity. So these products tend to work well if you have a healthy community spouse. If you have someone who's unhealthy, they're not going to work well because they're either going to die or they're going to end up in a nursing home, and those payments are not going to benefit them. Now, annuities can also be used for the person in the nursing home. So we can set up an annuity with money that the person in the nursing home has, invested in an annuity, and that person is going to start getting payments every month. Well, in most of these cases, we're doing this because a gift has been made, a gift that makes the person in the nursing home not eligible for Medicaid. Okay? And the annuity payments that they're getting every month are helping pay the nursing home during a time that they are not eligible for Medicaid benefits. The Medicaid program is something called a 5-year look-back period for gifts. Any gifts that have been made within the last 5 years have to be disclosed on the Medicaid application. Then the county assistance office will determine how long this person is not eligible because of those gifts. The more you've given away, the longer you are not going to be eligible for the Medicaid program. They actually have a formula for determining how long you are not going to be eligible. For example, if a person gave away their house to their child within the 5 years prior to applying for Medicaid, they would have to disclose that gift on the Medicaid application. And then they would get a notice saying, well, because you gave away those funds, or the house rather, you're not eligible for 9 months. And that 9 months is a calculation done in 2021. It changes every year. But that's the notice you would get. And then you're going to have to find a way to pay for your care for 9 months because you're not going to get Medicaid. And you would better hope that you still have some money left. And if you do, you can use a Medicaid annuity along with your other income sources to pay the nursing home for the next 9 months. Now, the Medicaid annuity, along with the other sources of income, will come in every single month, and they'll approximately pay the nursing home bill. So what I need in my example here of the $100,000 home that was given away is I need enough cash that when combined with the Social Security the person has, as well as other sources of income, will approximately pay the nursing home every month. It's not going to be exact because the nursing home bill is different every month. Some months are 30-day months, and there are 31, and then the nursing home bill tends to add some extras every single month. So you always have a few $100s where you can't get that paid with the annuity and the Social Security or other sources of income, but it's going to come pretty close. Okay? You can actually do some pretty accurate calculations Sometimes when we have a pot of money left, maybe we haven't made a gift yet, but we've got $300,000 that remain. I can figure out how much money to give away, and I can figure out the period of ineligibility. I know how much the nursing home is charging. And so I can leave enough money to put into the annuity. So along with the annuity and the other sources of income, we pay through that period of ineligibility, and we're able to shelter some of the money that remains. So a lot of times we're intentionally making a gift in order to shelter some of the funds that remain, rather than trying to deal with a gift that's been made in the past. In either case, we need resources in order to do this plan. If you've given away all of your money, obviously, common sense would say you can't do this plan because the resources have been given away. So hopefully these individuals have some money left. And it's a rather complicated plan. Experienced elder law attorneys know how to do this. I've been doing it for well over 20 years. And it's very helpful to shelter assets. So if you know somebody who hasn't done any pre-planning, they haven't tried to create a trust to transfer their home or other assets, this is a plan we do quite regularly. We figure out what do we want to save, what can we transfer, how long is the period of ineligibility going to be, and how much money do we need to fund the annuity. One of the necessary tools you need in order to do this plan, however, is a good power of attorney. Sometimes I'm dealing with families where their loved one has dementia or Alzheimer's, and A, didn't do a power of attorney, or the power of attorney is so old that it doesn't have any provisions for doing a plan like the gift and annuity plan that I've described. We needed some authority in that document to transfer assets in an effort to shelter them and then buy the annuity. So if you know somebody who's in the early stages of dementia and you're watching this video and you're thinking, well, that may come up somewhere down the road, we may be doing that in the next 5 years, the first step to do would be to get a very good power of attorney that allows for Medicaid planning and asset protection. Well, those are the most common types of uses of Medicaid annuities in our asset protection plans. If you're interested in using Medicaid annuities, I strongly recommend you make an appointment with an attorney at Marshall, Parker & Weber to learn about how it could work for your family. Every case is a little different, but certainly we can talk about setting up an asset protection plan, because these are in many ways the most popular ways to shelter assets for people who have not done any pre-planning and want to save some of the money from the costs of long-term care, and then as quickly qualify your loved one for medical assistance. Now, don't forget to visit our YouTube page, which you can find at our paelderlaw.com website, where you're going to find a lot of other webinars very similar to this topic that might be interesting to you. Thank you so much for attending.